at 7:50. We'll call the meeting to order. First is the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call.
Ms. Bolenbacher.
Here.
Mr. Chandler is not
here.
Oh, he's online. Okay, got him. Ms. Compatello,
Here.
Mr. Lavasser,
Here.
Mr. Marks, here, Mr. Oliverio,
Here.
Mr. Rodilla,
Here.
Mayor Perry is absent, Solicitor Corbel,
Here.
Engineer Minsterman,
Here.
and myself. We have a quorum.
Great, thanks. So everybody knows we did not have a meeting 2 weeks ago. So we have some ratifications on the bill list. The first one is for the consent agenda, approval of the minutes from July 28th of 2022, and also the bill list from August 11th of 2022, ratifying that, and also August 25th for this meeting 2022. So can I have a motion to approve the August 25th, 2022 consent agenda?
So moved.
Philip,
Second.
Kirsten, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. Public comments on agenda items. So at this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue appearing on today's agenda. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before the council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please sign in and or raise your hand on Zoom and state your name and your physical address for the record. Do we have anybody over there? Just one person? Okay. Chemicals permit. Okay. So this one's not on the agenda, so this will be at the end of the meeting. All right. Do we have anybody online?
Nobody with their hands raised.
Okay, great. So acknowledging receipt of the written reports on the OneDrive from July of 2022, including the financial statement, Act 511, and trash collection and property tax collection, police, EMS, building inspection, and code enforcement. Any questions at all? All right, engineers report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to expand a little bit on the engineer's report that we submitted. There are a few items that have changed a bit. One is the DPW building construction. Just reporting that not only are the foundations completed, but the structural steel now is up, and they're completing the siding, and they'll be starting on the roof and the roof sheeting in a couple days. Once the roof's done, then the windows will be installed and the gutters and trim will be completed. Fleer says that's the contractor. He says he's going to be working on the pond, the storm pond installation. That was required as part of the Roslyn permit, and that work will begin sometime before the completion of the building. Also, overall, he expects to complete the project in about 6 more weeks. Next is the municipal building facade. Cost is the contractor. They're starting the erection of the scaffolding in the front of the municipal building on basically tomorrow, and to finish their parapet work. That work will take approximately about a week to finish, and then they'll move to the parking lot side of the library building to work on repairs above the window. The work remaining at the municipal building for the stone replacement and light refurbishment will start once the magistrate library is complete. So we still need to get that done. Also, the replacement stone should be delivered to the site next week as well. So that'll take up some space for storage. They estimate to be complete in the with the entire project in about 6 weeks as well. Then we have the magistrate roof. They expect to start on September 12th. That's the anticipated start date. The roof work had to wait until the magistrate parapets were repaired, which is just finishing now. So that had to be done before the roof could be started. Then the roof replacement looks like it'll take about 3 weeks after the start of that September 12th date. Also, to follow up on the Crafton Boulevard Grow Grant project. Essentially now the contractor had to demo for about a week and a half for an emergency type project. They're back on site. They're working now on the south side of the road on Crafton Boulevard related to the concrete repairs or the concrete construction work. They'll finish the south side. They'll move to the north side. They expect to be complete by the end of September, even with the final paving, landscaping. Complete the construction work, the concrete work by the end of September. The rest of the project, which includes the landscaping and the paving, by the middle of October. So that project should then be complete. Then they'll be mobilizing to begin construction at the start of September. Once they've completed the concrete work, as I mentioned, on the streetscape project. The goal is to have the project paving before the end of the year. And this is what I'm talking about, the Clearview extension intersection and reconfiguration of that intersection. So that work will be underway shortly as well. And I think that was all of the items that there were changes to the actual engineer's report. Otherwise, the report is accurate as it stands.
Any questions for the engineer?
Just for the public's edification, the borough staff and the engineer are working closely with the construction crew and the police department to ensure that corridor is safe for children. You noticed there was a corridor established, and the crossing guard and the police department are working very closely with Engineer Minsterman's team on that. So we hope that the sidewalks are in the ground. They're getting the bases in for the additional lamp post. And I just wanted to say we really appreciate everybody's patience throughout the project areas. And the contractor is going to be working with the borough manager to communicate about the restoration piece. So Doug, do you want to just speak to that real quickly, please?
Yes, there's been some concern with the basically the grass strip, the tree lawn, that the weeds, it's not taken. So the contractor is going to replant that for the third time. And there'll be a component coming from the office. That is the responsibility of the adjacent property owner to maintain that, water that grass. So there'll be notifications sent out to the residents, but the contractor is coming back to reseed those areas.
Yeah, that's a great point. We met with them this week. And number one, to confirm that they're here to stay, and they are. They're committed to stay through the rest of the project. And also just to talk about, as you mentioned, the safety corridor, getting that accelerated. They think within a week that sidewalk will be back and ready for use. So they should be finishing it soon, as well as, you know, some of the resident frustrations associated with a construction project like this. So while we appreciate the patience, there's that element of pain that goes with this, but we just keep assuring everyone it's going to be a fantastic project when it's done. So we appreciate the patience.
And Rick, one other thing with regards to the modifications that council approved concerning Vance Way, that is something that's going to be progressing as well, correct?
Yes, that'll be part of the sidewalk and curb work when they get to that spot. So that is included.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, President's report. So as part of the organizational assessment done by Grassroots, started in January, looking at our entire borough. This includes not only administrative staff, public works, committees, everything. And part of that was their highest recommendation was filling the borough manager seat. Right now, we have an interim borough manager since Russell left in December of 2020, I believe it was. So Doug has been filling in as interim borough manager, and at this point, we need to move forward and fill that role. So part of that is engaging a search firm, and in executive session, it was discussed about the search firm. We have Mr. Lavasser leading the committee on this search and have interviewed or maybe you can speak about the process there.
Yes, the committee composed of council member Radilla and Bollenbacher, and I reached out to 4 firms, 2 of which specialize in recruitment and searches. The other we actually have used in the past, Public Partners and Grassroots consultants. And so we reviewed the proposals and we came to a decision point to recommend the Bradley partnerships. All of the organizations did a very nice job of submitting the proposals, and we thank them. And we thank the committee for their time.
Great. So as part of this, the recommendation of the subcommittee is to utilize the Bradley partnerships to conduct the search, interviews, and take us all through that entire process to hire a borough manager. So we do have a motion to engage the Bradley partnerships to lead a search and recruitment for a borough manager. Make a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Radilla, Ms. Bollenbacher. Any discussion?
Do we know roughly, like an estimate of what it might cost, aside from like the obvious salary that we would pay to the person we hire? What's the additional cost?
The cost for the recruitment process?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are a couple models, and one of I believe the model that we're going forth with is a retainer model, and the borough will put down $7,500 to initiate the search. Any expenses outside of the time that the consultant puts into it, such as advertisements, that expense is borne by the municipality. It's not to exceed $20,000 to conduct the search. And the time, for instance, let's say the consultant bills 100 hours and they're able to get a person in that 100 hours, and we paid them the $7,500, they would, be paid out of those funds.
Makes sense.
Right. And the salary of the borough manager is budgeted in this year's budget. So there's budget for a borough manager and an assistant borough manager. So Doug's salary currently is out of those 2 funds. So yes, yeah. It goes just there. So we have not been utilizing the funds for the borough manager. So that position has been budgeted, and this is to start the search for that person.
And Mr. President, and just to council as a whole, the contract details haven't not been worked out. We are going to be working through those, and the council president will review and then execute that. So.
Any other?
Will we then be discussing or voting on a final contract, or is this the only motion we make?
Yeah, this would be the motion to engage them and start the process. It would not be a review of the contract itself.
Did they have a timeline that was discussed?
Yes, so the goal is to, with regards to the process. The committee is going to be working with them through a strategy session, establish the goals, the objectives, the job description, and then the timeframes. So as you know, the council discussed, we're going to hopefully find somebody, in maybe by the October timeframe. I mean, they've been told that we are very eager to move forward with the process.
Any other discussion? So we have a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. And that's all I have for our report today. Mayor's report. Coletta is not here. Solicitor report.
No public report.
Okay. Manager's report.
I submitted a written report, but I do have one announcement for the public. We will be performing smoke testing on the sanitary sewer lines in the Maxwell, Duncan, Ingram Avenue area. This is for searching for projects for future separation areas. So if anybody notices any smoke, it's the work is being done by Gateway. It's legitimate and it's safe. Nothing further really needs to be said, but just as an FYI. And we do have information about smoke testing on the website if anybody's interested in further learning about it.
Doug, can you reach out to Sam at Ingram? Because we saw him tonight, and prior to Philip getting to this meeting, he had asked about this smoke testing
Okay.
and wasn't sure what it was or the details of it.
Good.
Okay. Standing committee reports, finance and administration. Does anybody on the finance committee have anything to report? All right. Community services and infrastructure, Ms. Compitello.
Right, the first item on the agenda is a topic of a fire parking study. There's been discussion over the past few years at different points about access for fire trucks and issues with difficulties getting emergency vehicles around tight corners. So a fire parking study was conducted earlier this year, I believe.
It actually dates back to 2020, I believe.
2020.
It predated me.
Okay, well, it's been circulating for a while. A study was conducted to evaluate problem intersections that need to be addressed in order to grant fire trucks and emergency vehicles unobstructed access in the event of an emergency. This was, to give a bit more context, this was a study that was done by one of our policemen who also is on the fire, serves on the fire department. He looked around Crafton and documented where we currently have ordinances that limit parking, ordinances or markings at intersections that limit how close to the intersection you can park. And there are standard rules regarding that. And he had indicated areas where that was frequently a problem, or he noticed a lot of difficulties with cars parked too close to the intersection, and put together this parking study. Doug, I think I'll pass it to you to give a bit more of the context and talk about the next steps for that.
So the map that is on the screens here delineates all the new areas where we would have to post for no parking, and then codify that with our ordinances. In the packet is the ordinance that does codify those locations. It's really just a matter now if there's no objections, we'll advertise the ordinance for adoption. And that would be at our September 22nd meeting is when we would adopt this.
Doug, will that map be made available on the website perhaps?
Yes.
I know it's rather difficult to see at this scale, but each of the identified areas is by an intersection, and it identifies where there are not currently markings, or there's not currently signage, or the markings or signage are insufficient to indicate how far back from the intersection cars need to park. And that is a standard standard practice and rules that you cannot park a parked vehicle too close to an intersection. And so, yeah, every area that he has identified as an area that needs updated or improved markings and signage is at right around an intersection.
So I think a couple things on this study. One is just enhancements to paint and signage, changing out signage and paint on. And I think that was like 20 or so items that were just paint and signage. So those currently exist where you're not allowed to park. The red on the map are in addition. So these are additions, and this is taking away parking spaces on these streets.
To be clear, in some of those cases, these are not taking away legal parking spaces. They are marking
Right.
spaces where you are not supposed to park because you are supposed to be away a distance from an intersection. But in some of those intersections, it is not painted. And so people regularly park
Right.
too close to the intersection anyways.
Right, so that the public is clear, because our residents are parking in some of those areas. And we do have a lack of garages and people utilize that. So I think this was done by the fire police department, and it might be good to have somebody from that department come and speak to council about their thoughts on this too. Because the fire department has voiced concerns about other things in the past too. And if this is one they're heavily supporting, I think it would be good for them to come and also speak to that.
Maybe we can invite them to come to the next council meeting. These changes, the markings and signage that we are considering adding at these intersections is specifically because of fire truck and emergency vehicle access. If people park their personal vehicles too close to the intersection, especially in some of our tighter streets and smaller intersections, it can mean that the police and fire and emergency vehicles are not able to get through. So that is the reason why this study was done, and the reasoning behind why we think we need to strengthen the paint and the signage that we have to ensure that those distances from the intersection are respected and maintained.
So the items on the map now up here are not legal parking spots today, is that right? Or are these currently legal that we're codifying to change? I'm just trying to understand which is which.
Doug, do we have any actual measurements there? The standard is you have to be 15 feet away from an intersection, whether it's marked or not. And he has identified solely locations at intersections. Do we have measurements tied to those?
I was just curious if what we have marked here looks like they're all at intersections, and are these just trouble spots? Like, is that what we're marking here? Or
Yes, these were spots that have been identified as trouble areas for getting the fire apparatuses through.
because of potentially illegal parking?
Correct.
And technically, the police could be ticketing people for parking in these areas today. I'm only asking because if folks come to council and ask, hey, we're changing the parking situation, we're not actually changing the parking situation. We just have.
We're memorializing.
Sure. We're going to make it more official, and we're going to make it more obvious.
Yes.
With paint. And then
Signage.
obviously if it's painted and signed,
It'll be
the
very
police-
clearly delineated. So if there's parking there, they can be ticketed appropriately. So that we have.
Right, so that the police,
enforcement action.
so the police don't have to take a tape measure out and ticket somebody maybe unknowingly parked too close to an intersection, right?
And somebody could possibly claim that they don't know that rule. And that's why I think it's critically important that the fire department and/or police department come and explain this to us, because they have supported Crafton, or they have talked about Crafton Boulevard turning lanes. This is a bigger one. This is 30 or so different areas that we are going to say that nobody can park. So we're taking out 30, whether it's close to that area or whatever, for people to park in our borough. So if the fire department, police department support it, I'd like them to come to council. For me personally, if they don't support it, or they don't come to council to explain, then, we'll see how this goes.
I would just like to clarify though, although I agree with the idea of inviting them. I would like to clarify yet again that we are not taking away parking by marking legal standards that are already in place.
I'd like just to understand the criteria that have been put forth. And I also like to have a broader conversation about the apparatuses that the borough is buying for the department, because I'd like to ensure that the apparatus serve the community in which they're bought for. And I know this has been a point of discussion in the past 20 to 30 years about the right sizing of said equipment. So I'd like to have that discussion as well.
Well, along with this map, there is a list of each specific change, each specific intersection that should all have been posted on the council drive for review. So you can read it in text. The next steps for this would be to, if we are going to propose changing the ordinance, we would not vote on that tonight. We would have to advertise it. So Doug can open that advertisement and have it open for 30 days, and that this map and the information about what the changes entail would be all publicly viewable for the next 30 days. Alternately, if we're not ready to even open it to the public, I'm not sure if all of the council members have had time to digest this, and it is quite a lot. Alternately, you could take more time to look through all that information, and we could open the advertisement at a future council meeting. Those are our two options. That is the next step.
So I guess I have another question. So if it's technically the law now that residents shouldn't be parking within 15 feet of, is it of any intersection? Am I understanding that right? Because I know that we've identified through a study that these are the problem areas. Technically, they couldn't park on most of those streets if that's the law.
So this study was done by one of our policemen and firemen. And I don't know what his methodology was, if he tried to document every single intersection or just the ones that seemed like they were the more difficult areas for emergency vehicles. Maybe he only focused on those. I'm not sure what the methodology was. And if that's something that we're concerned with, that's something that we can ask him to come in and speak more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all very good information. I think they're all good considerations. I don't know what our approach was going to be to passing or taking action on this, but I guess I would encourage us to maybe move slowly, a road at a time or something, so that we don't overwhelm the residents with, hey, we're about to make 33 some odd 43, however many are on here, changes to parking simultaneously, and give residents and the fire folks, the fire volunteers, whoever, to come and give input on individual pieces, or at least smaller chunks of it, right? Because I could imagine a number of residents and possibly the fire department itself could come and give some input on how to prioritize this list. And then we can,
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
cut
go
you
ahead.
off, but since we are talking about paint at intersections, is there, we can certainly have them come in and talk next month. We can wait a bit on that. But as for the idea of phasing it, what would be the benefit in saying that we've identified that these are areas where emergency vehicles struggle to get through? Why would we not put paint down for all of them at once if they're all perfectly safe and legal improvements to ensure that our safety vehicles can get through? Like how would we choose that some streets should get that safety protection and not others?
I think that's a great question. And I think actually now applies the way you pose that to the entire municipality.
I also think if you look at other streets, then is it every street we should be taking away and having those items on there? So Crafton was made with, a very tight streets, one-way streets, and no it's all off-street parking. So people don't have garages, and we've existed this way for over 100 and some years. And I think we need to look, doing something like this, we need a further information on it in order to make these types of decisions, because this will affect residents. And that's my opinion, and I understand, so I am.
Yep.
So.
Go ahead.
Well, it sounds like we'd like to invite the patrolman who did the study, if possible. And if not, then one of the other representatives from the police station and or the fire department to come and explain a bit more next month. I don't know if we need to make a formal decision on that. Doug, if you wanted to say anything else, but it certainly sounds like
What
there's.
I
a
am going
desire
to
have
say
him
is I'm
come.
not going to put the advertisement out. And I'll invite the fire department and police department to the meeting.
Right, that seems like a good next step. And in the meantime, because this is a lot of very detailed information, the details intersection by intersection are on the council drive. The next item on the agenda for my committee is the public stairs grant projects. The borough received $300,000 from Representative Deasy and $220,000 from the GEDTF fund to address public stair improvements throughout the borough. This has been discussed in several of our past meetings. We've looked at the maps and where these improvements would occur. So with that context in mind, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion. We've received the funding, so I'm going to make the motion to approve the following stairs for either partial or full replacement, as was developed through our engineers' designs to maximize the use of our funding.
Just, can you put it up?
Yeah, sorry. One or both of these? Exhibit. All right, screen share incoming. Here we go.
Great, thank you. So the borough has received funds from two different sources to make improvements and maintenance upgrades to a number of our stairs. We have set limits on those funds, and so our engineers have looked at the status of each of those staircases, the maintenance needs and the condition of each of those staircases, and they have targeted the most necessary improvements while also figuring out how we can get the most repairs done within the amount of funding that we have. And so we have identified a set of stairs here, and this is the motion I'm going to make. A motion to approve the following stairs for either partial or full replacement. Number one is Belvedere Street to Afton Avenue. That would be a partial replacement. Number two is Promenade Street to Fountain Street. That would be a full replacement. Number three is Clearview Avenue to Crafton Boulevard. That would be a partial replacement. Number four is Crafton Boulevard to Walnut. That would be a full replacement. And number five is Chest Street to Alley A, and that would be a full replacement.
Did you make that motion?
She made a motion. Yeah.
Second.
That's it. Discussion? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I do want to thank Mr. Deasy for the grant and his work on this, but also, the committee that has worked on this and Gateway for this. This is $500,000 to repair our stairs of grant money, and that's huge. So thank you.
Right, the third item is just an update, and there's a slide or a few slides that go with that as well. The community, the Crafton and Ingram Joint Municipal Zoning Project has kicked off this summer. And as a first community event, a visioning workshop was held on August 18th at the Crafton Community Center. This was advertised and open to both Crafton and Ingram residents because it is a joint multi-municipal project. But this was the first community event to share information and gather resident ideas about our updated zoning project. This was well attended by Crafton and Ingram residents. Give my short recap and then introduce the slides. It gathered residents' ideas and preferences, which will help guide the zoning update. The zoning ordinance rewrite process began in June 2022 and is expected to be finalized in the summer of 2023. So there are several slides that our consultant team put together for those who couldn't make it. This is the highlights from the August 18th event. The purpose was to generate excitement for and engagement in the zoning project, to build expectations for what it can accomplish, learn how community members wish to see investment take shape there in 3 key locations. And they have images of those to follow. This was publicized on social media, on Savvy Citizen with several different updates, on flyers that were posted around the community, through community word of mouth, through Rotary messaging and card distribution that was done at and following the Ribbon Chicken Fest. And it said 32 people attended, or 32 people signed in at least. The consultant team had maps of 3 different areas around the Crafton busway and Borough building, the Ingram busway, and then the shopping plaza that the 2 communities share. They had maps of those and they had these Legos and asked people to share their ideas and had some illustrated discussions around what people would like to see. So there are a few pictures of the event. We had, again, pretty good turnout from Crafton and Ingram residents, young and old. Some of the key discussions that came out of the Ingram Station one, community working space, pedestrian connections. We can go on to the Crafton slide. We can post all of these on the website. Comments that people shared for Crafton Station. This is the area around the Borough building and the Crafton busway. People talked about creating a downtown feel, preserving and enhancing how easy it is to walk. There were a lot of discussions around what might happen on the American Legion site, which is currently for sale. Conversations about how to better utilize or what the future could be of some of our empty lots, building new buildings up to the sidewalk and increasing parking and walkability. And I think the rest are just photos. Oh, shopping center. One of the stations talked about ideas for the shopping center. This is one of the focal points of this multi-municipal project. The goal is to update our zoning ordinances, but because the municipal boundaries go through the shopping center, it is written into our consultant's scope to do an overlay district for the shopping center. So conversations there talked about preserving green space, using it as a catalytic bargaining piece to spur redevelopment, better using the parking lot, adding mixed use, creating more of a block pattern, housing to strengthen our residential tax base and green space. We just wanted to share that recap. That was a successful community event. It is part of a larger project that will be ongoing, and we'll make sure that these are added to the website. The final item on my agenda is the pool bathhouse update, and I'll pass that to Doug as well. Or
I can take it. We've had contact with the state, and this is a federal monies. They've not given us a time frame on when the agreement will be coming, but it's safe to say that the construction will not start until 2024. The bathhouse will not be ready until the 2024 pool season.
After the 2023 season next
Correct.
year.
so what does that mean for next summer? Will the pool be operational?
We'll just have the same old bathhouse. But the pool will be operational.
Yeah,
So the construction will start after next season. It won't be during the summer season.
Correct.
it was planned to start like next month and now it's delayed.
Delayed because of the funding.
Right, well, that's it for me. So I will pass it over to Mr. Marks.
Yeah, so the Community Rec and Community Events Committee met last week and we talked about a number of upcoming community events. There really were no material updates from, I think, the last list that I had mentioned, but we did want to bring up that the rec board is requesting that council consider resuming senior dinners on a quarterly basis starting next year, starting in 2023. So I know that this has been an item of discussion for a while. We've had a number of community members ask about it. And we do have a budget still for the dinners. So correct me if I'm wrong. They're basically asking that we continue budgeting money for the senior dinners and they have a plan to use it next year on a quarterly basis. Is that right? We don't actually have to, do we have to pass anything formal to approve that? I don't think we do. Just the budget. Okay.
What the committee was saying is they wanted to get council's thoughts on starting those senior dinners up again, because they've been off since prior to COVID. They had stopped and then starting those up.
Right. So that's on here. I don't know if anybody has any points of discussion they want to bring up, but generally the committee seemed pretty open to the idea as long as, we had general council support on it. Cool. And I think the only other minor update was that we did plan on Public Works was going to have a way to offer some 220 service down at the park for events. So for anybody who is looking forward to that with the rec board, that should be available soon. Doug, do we have an update on the digital sign?
Just waiting to hear back from the Rotary, but they've indicated it'll be around $10,000 grant. And then the total cost of the sign is around $25,000. So I put into the draft budget $15,000 for in next year's budget for that sign for our contribution.
Cool. And I don't know that we had any material updates for the newsletter other than we're still compiling stories and getting things ready for hitting mailboxes in October-ish.
I think mid to late October, I think was the goal.
That's what we're aiming for. So that's all I got.
Okay. Thanks. Commission vacancy, Mr. Chandler.
Yes, so not a ton to talk about tonight. We do, however, have a motion, and before I make the motion, I'll discuss it a little bit. I just want to mention that Ms. Bullenbacher was able to meet with Lynn Nickel, who is currently on the Civil Service Commission, and her seat had expired, and she did resubmit to continue on in her seat. So with that, we have a motion to appoint Lynn Nickel to the Civil Service Commission for a 6-year term set to expire on July 1st of 2028.
Second.
Ballenbacher seconds. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, so with that, we do have the rest of our current open positions. And for anybody who is interested, please do apply at the craftonborough.com/commissions. And with that, we have 1 seat as an alternate on the Civil Service Commission, 1 seat on the Zoning Hearing Board, also as an alternate, one seat open on the library board. And upcoming at the end of September, we have 2 seats on the rec board, as well as at the end of December, we will have 1 seat opening on the zoning hearing board. So please do apply, especially for the rec board if you are interested, as we will be doing interviews for those coming up next month.
All right. Thank you. Council of Governments, COG, Mr. Videla.
Hello. So after the summer hiatus, the COG will be starting back up on September 15th in Collier. But besides that, it looks like we will be submitting a pre-application to the COG for replacing the sidewalk at Duncan Avenue from Steuben to Glen. And council will be passing a resolution when it submits the final application in October of this year. The total project that is estimated at $37,500. That's it.
And just, we had applied for this 2 cycles ago. And at that point, we had flipped our funding with Carnegie. And so we're just reapplying for this for the next cycle.
Is this 100% paid grant or is there a contribution required?
There is a small contribution and it's depending on how much funding comes in from the federal government into the county government and to the COG. So, but the majority of it is covered through the grant.
All right. Community announcements. Upcoming council meeting. The next meeting is Thursday, September 8th at 7:15. The pool will be open during the weekdays. We're already towards the end of the pool season. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 4 to 7, starting next Monday. So we'll only be open at night. And then on the weekends, Saturday, 12 to 7, and Sunday, 1 to 6, with the last day of the season being Labor Day from 12 to 6. Crafton Borough will also be holding from our rec committee its fall festival in Crafton Park on September 24th from noon to 8. There will be a barbecue cook-off, cornhole tournament, and also Crafton's Got Talent. So hopefully all of you will be there. Yeah.
Quick question about the upcoming council meeting. Is it, I know that with summer and a number of folks planning trips on council particularly, was it worth doing a straw poll for a little while here to make sure we'll have a quorum physically for the next meeting before we before the end of the meeting? I will not be here.
I will be available online, but I will not be available in person.
Okay. All right.
I failed to mention in my report, we will hold a brief executive session following the meeting tonight to obtain legal advice from the solicitor with no action being taken.
All right. Any additional community announcements? Okay. Public comment. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough on any issue. Only residents and taxpayer of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please sign in or raise your hand. If you're in person and or on Zoom, state your name and physical address for the record. So we do have somebody signed in, Jane Boyer, and you can come right up here, Jane. Yeah, they can't hear you. Yeah, just pull it down, yeah.
It's got to get turned on.
Because they won't be able to hear you.
Yeah.
I'll try to be really quick.
Oh, you're good.
I'm not on Zoom. Jane Boyer, 28 Duncan Avenue, Crafton, PA 15205-2545.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I've never spoken before council, so I'm a little nervous.
That's okay.
My first question is I'm getting a retaining wall built. And I wanted to know, and I did ask the company involved with the construction on whether or not I would need a permit for Crafton. It will last for about 3 days at the bottom of the hill of that alleyway of Crafton. 28 Duncan Avenue, you can see it. It's right between Miss Truly's property and 28 Duncan Avenue, and I wanted to know whether or not the construction company needs a permit to build a retaining wall.
I mean, I can answer that one quickly.
I did ask the construction company. They said no, but it's back to you.
If it's under 4 feet, but it would be good for the construction company just to reach out to me, just to confirm what the wall is actually going to be built.
I will
And-
have them contact you. Can I
Please.
contact your office? I know your
Yes.
direct number. My second question is I've already adjusted with the manager of Crafton Borough, and I have toxic chemicals in the house that I would like to rid of. I've also contacted many legalities, including the start of the internment here for the manager. And you say, well, are they household chemicals? No. Are they special collection that Crafton and Ingram also offers? No. Are they dangerous chemicals? Yes. Are they illegal chemicals? Yes. I'm not a criminal. No. Are they my brothers? Yes, they are. Have I contacted? Thank you. We're on a plane here. Thank you. I don't know where to begin. You say, what kind are they? They're double grade, construction, chemical, commercial grade chemicals. Like hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid. that are
Yeah,
in
you
pretty
don't have to go
bodies.
into the details. So let me,
Illegal, and I've
Yeah.
got contacted the fire marshal. I've
Yeah,
contacted-
well, I'm actually a professional in this, so let me just
Thank you.
address this for you. Number one, we provide service through your trash bill.
Yeah, they won't take it.
So you called Waste Management.
Yep,
All right.
they're unnamed
We-
illegal
we-
chemicals.
We will take this conversation offline and I will put you in touch with the proper authority at the
Thank you.
county level to address this.
Enough said, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have anybody signed in here. Oh, do you want, oh, you've raised your hand. Sure, come on up, Steve.
I have a question on the paving on Clearview.
Name and address.
Oh, Stephen Palchowski, 11 Bradford Avenue, Crafton. On the paving project, how far down are you paving from Clearview Extension? Are you? Well, yeah, you said the paving will be done by October. What is going to be paved?
Mr. Minsterman, if you could use your mic, that would be helpful.
I'm trying to remember the end of the street. Do you remember the top street that the paving?
So
stops
the
at?
pavement's gonna cut off at Baldwick. Basically, we'll pass Baldwick. And then there's gonna be another section where we pick up from, is that?
I'm trying to think of the upper
From-
street.
From Clearview Extension all the way down to Baldwick,
To
that's being completely done side to side. Then there's the road was restored with a trench restoration from Baldwick down to in front of the school, but in front of the school, we're going to do side to side in that section completely. And there's another ADA ramp that's going to be put in, and then the engineer has brought to our attention and the chief of police has brought to our attention some additional potential improvements that are going to be brought to council to discuss. So with regards to the way people are actually crossing the street from the new parking lot to the school. So there's some additional conversation there, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, they answered that. Okay, because I wasn't sure. And my other question is, there any way we could get some crosswalks painted, even though they're going to redo it? Because since with all these bump outs, cars do not know where to stop when people are crossing the road. It's like when you're crossing the road, you can't walk across the road. You got to run across the road sometimes, especially down at Baldwick with the bump outs and with the school going on right now. I know you're going to be paving it, but how hard would it be for the road crew to come out, paint some lines, and then when they dig it up, they'll be painted again, especially with school in session right now.
Yeah, I think we can address that with the engineer and independent. And then to your point, there will be a restoration, and that restoration hopefully will be done by, we were talking beginning of October. That's if things go well with weather, should be the.
Well,
Yeah.
His week and a half that they were delayed seemed to be like 3 weeks
I
when you
know.
lived there and saw nobody around. So,
Yeah,
so.
but
there's
to
another
your
delay.
point, we're going to take that up.
Okay, I was just wondering if we get even just some temporary painted crosswalks, because I know it's gonna have to be redone, but it's something that Public Works could do. And it wouldn't take much, and with all the kids walking to school and stuff, because the crossing guards aren't always there.
Right.
And there is a lot of traffic in that area of
Kids go to
people walking.
basketball.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Lavasser reminded me that I didn't mention anything about the crossing in front of the school. So what's happening with the new parking lot across the school is that the teachers and or parents apparently are parking there and then walking out and crossing illegally in the middle of the block just to make the shortcut to school instead of going down to the corner to cross. So we did some research on both the city and the state, and the state's the governing design standard, and no one recommends mid-block crossings. So they confuse the public, they confuse the drivers, and there's criteria that is minimum required, even if you are going to consider it, even though it's recommended not to. And the base criteria is 300 feet from the nearest intersection. So I think we're 100 or 150. Also, there's guidelines for the amount of foot traffic that crosses at those locations, and it wouldn't appear that we would meet that standard either. So the suggestion from the traffic engineer is that there are signs for that very purpose directing folks to the crosswalk and just trying to encourage them not to cross because it's a dangerous situation. So there's more to come on that. He's prepared or is preparing a summary of that description that I just mentioned, so that can be looked at. And once again, the simplest thing is to place a sign and see if we can encourage folks to walk to the crosswalk at the corner.
I would just like to add to that, that when this was going through design, we did request a mid-block crossing, and we went through this conversation about how it was not going to be feasible. We did acknowledge that people would probably do that, and we did look into whether we could get a mid-block crossing. It is still a work in progress, and there are additional traffic calming measures coming to that block as well, which hopefully should help. But at least at this point, they are stopping in the parking lot and then crossing, rather than stopping in the middle of the street and crossing. So small steps.
I think to Steve's point, that the Noble crossing area is just two little lines that are kind of faint. So when you see that, you're like, is that really the crossing, or should I just go here? So I think to his point, can we make it, I mean, if they're, the parallel lines that go down, and just paint something on there, because we do have kids going to basketball, they're going to a whole bunch of things. And if they see that versus these two little lines that you're not sure where to cross, I think that would be huge. Then people would know, oh yeah, I've got to go down here to make the cross.
Good. I'll get a request to the project manager, Alberto, to talk to the construction company about that.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Think out loud real quick. I mean, if the crossing continues to be a problem, even with signs, et cetera, are there other diversion tactics, barriers, et cetera?
More traffic calming so people don't drive so fast.
No, right. I mean, to encourage the pedestrians.
So there's going to be more to everybody here, where we have the grant put into for the multimodal grant, and there's some concepts that the school district and the borough are looking at, and all the professionals will be weighing in, and council will have another opportunity to weigh in and have a public presentation. But it is top of mind for everybody there. And this is again our second application for the multimodal grant, because we all have understood for many years that corridor needs improvement. And though there may not be 1,000 speeding tickets given out, and I want to make sure that we put this on the record, our police officers are not able to easily give out speeding tickets because radar is not allowed at the municipal level. Make it very clear. If you put in a freedom of information request to see how many speeding tickets we've given out, it's very difficult for our officers to take on that task because of our legal limitations in that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay,
I would also just add that it is also state law to stop, to stop for any pedestrian in the street, regardless of where they are or whether it is marked or not. So if we do have to err on regulating something more than others, it would be the vehicle, which is far more dangerous than the person on foot. That being said, please cross at the crosswalks. We have them for a reason.
okay. All right, meeting adjourned, 8:15, 1 hour. Right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We will have a brief executive, so stay in your seats, public. Good
Not the
evening.
public, yeah.
Good night.